She was just a poor girl, kneeling by a lonely river, washing other people's clothes with bleeding hands and a silent heart. Mocked, ignored, and treated like nothing, she clung to one old necklace, her only inheritance. But on one ordinary morning, a stranger arrived. The moment his eyes fell on that necklace, his world collapsed. What did he see that made a powerful man tremble? What secret was buried in that small piece of jewelry? And how did a girl the village rejected become the woman a billionaire would kneel before? Stay with us till the end, because this story proves that destiny never forgets, and the truth always returns. Before we start, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you love powerful, emotional African stories like this. Now let's dive into this unforgettable story together. Amina learned the meaning of hardship long before she understood the meaning of hope. In Oduama village, morning did not come with comfort or excitement for her. It came with cold air, aching bones, and the silent fear of another long day without kindness. Before the first rooster crowed, she was already awake, sitting on the bare floor beside a cracked mud wall, tying the loose edge of her faded wrapper with trembling fingers. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, sharp and impatient, but she ignored it like she had learned to ignore many things. From inside the house came the harsh voice of her aunt, Ramota, slicing through the quiet dawn like a blade. "Imana, are you sleeping on duty? Get up this minute." Imana flinched and rose quickly to her feet. She knew better than to delay. In this house, delay was seen as rebellion. She hurried to the corner where a large plastic basin sat, filled with dirty clothes that did not belong to her. Shirts, wrappers, children's uniforms, all dumped there without care. Ramota appeared at the doorway, arms folded, eyes hard and unwelcoming. "You will wash everything before the sun gets hot," she said, "and don't let me hear any complaint from the owners. If one cloth is dirty, you will answer me." "Yes, Ma," Emina replied softly, lowering her eyes. As she bent to lift the basin, Ramota's gaze fell on the small necklace resting against Amina's chest. The chain was thin, old, and dull, yet Amina never removed it. Ramota hissed in irritation. "That useless thing again. One day it will be the reason for your trouble." Amina's fingers instinctively closed around the pendant. "It was my mother's," she whispered. Ramota scoffed. "Your mother is dead. That should be dead with her. Now move." Amina did not reply. She balanced the basin on her head and stepped out of the compound, her bare feet meeting the cool earth of the village path. The sky was pale, unsure of itself, and mist hung low over the fields. As she walked, villagers passed her without greeting. Some looked at her with pity, others with annoyance, and a few with open contempt. She was used to it. In Oduama, Amina was not just poor, she was unwanted. They called her names when they thought she could not hear. Orphan, burden, bad luck. Some said her mother died because she offended the spirits. Others believed Amina carried a curse. Nobody remembered that her mother had once been kind, gentle, and respected. Death had erased that memory, leaving only cruelty behind. The river greeted her with its familiar smell of wet soil and green leaves. It flowed calmly, indifferent to human suffering, yet it was the only place Amina felt safe. Here, nobody shouted at her. Here, water listened without judgment. She knelt at the riverbank, rolled up her sleeves, and dipped her hands into the cold water. The shock made her inhale sharply, but she did not pull back. She began to wash, scrubbing, rinsing, twisting, beating the clothes against a flat stone. Her fingers were rough, cracked from years of work, and small wounds opened easily. Soap burned her skin, yet she continued. The clothes belonged to people who barely acknowledged her existence, but she washed them as if they mattered. Because in her world, effort was her only value. As the sun climbed higher, the riverbank became busier. Women arrived with basins on their heads, laughing and chatting. Some greeted Amina, many ignored her, and a few whispered behind her back. Two young girls about her age passed by, their hair neatly braided, slippers clean. One laughed softly. "See how she lives here like river property," the girl said. "Who will marry that one?" the other replied. "Only hunger follows her." Amina kept her eyes on the water. She had learned that silence was sometimes the strongest shield. Still, something inside her tightened, not because she wanted their approval, but because she wanted to be seen as human. By midday, her back ached and her stomach burned with hunger. She had washed clothes for 3 different households already, sweat mixed with river water on her skin, and her wrapper clung heavily to her legs. She stood to stretch, and the world spun briefly. She grabbed a tree root for balance, breathing slowly until the dizziness passed. Her fingers brushed her necklace, and she held it gently like a prayer. A memory surfaced uninvited. Her mother lying weakly on a mat, voice thin but determined. "Amina, never remove this necklace," she had said. "No matter how hard life becomes, it is your proof." "Proof of what?" Amina had asked. Her mother had only smiled sadly. "One day, you will understand." The memory faded, leaving a hollow ache behind. Amina returned to washing, unaware that the river was not the only witness that day. Footsteps approached from behind, heavier than the others she had heard. She turned quickly, alert. Standing a few steps away was a man she had never seen before. He was tall, broad, dressed simply, yet there was something about him that did not belong to the village. His face was serious, eyes deep, carrying a weight Amina could not name. "Good afternoon, sir," she said cautiously. The man did not answer immediately. His gaze moved slowly from her face to the basin, to her hands, and then it stopped. His eyes fixed on her necklace. Amina felt a strange chill. The man took a step closer, then another, as if drawn by something unseen. His breathing changed. "Where did you get that necklace?" he asked, his voice low and unsteady. "My mother gave it to me," Amina replied. The man swallowed hard. "What was her name?" Amina hesitated, then answered. "Her name was Kem." The color drained from his face. He staggered back slightly, eyes filling with pain. For a moment it seemed he might fall. Amina's heart raced. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked. He did not respond. He stared at her like he was seeing a ghost. His hand lifted halfway toward the necklace, then dropped. "I knew a woman," he whispered, "who wore that same necklace." Amina's breath caught. "Do you know my mother?" The man closed his eyes briefly, as if fighting a storm inside him. When he opened them, they were wet. "I should have returned," he said quietly. Before Amina could ask another question, he turned and walked away quickly, his shoulders tense. She watched him disappear down the path, her hands shaking. The river continued to flow, calm and unchanged. But Amina stood frozen, clutching her necklace, knowing that something in her life had shifted. The past had spoken, and destiny had taken its first step toward her. Amina did not sleep that night. Even after the village went quiet and the frogs began their chorus near the stream, her mind kept replaying the stranger's eyes, Wishdorin, wounded, fixed on the necklace, as if it carried a name he had buried alive. She lay on a raffia mat in the corner of Ramoda's sitting room, staring at the soot-darkened ceiling. Each time she closed her eyes, she heard his voice again. "I should have returned." Returned from where? Returned to whom? At dawn, Ramoda's foot nudged her side. "Get up, lazy thing. The compound is a pigsty." Amina sprang up, folding her mat quickly. She swept the red dust, fetched water, lit the firewood, and stirred watery pap for Ramoda and her 2 children. The smell made her stomach twist, but she knew better than to ask for a cup. When they finished, the pot was empty. Amina rinsed it anyway, licking a thin smear from the wooden spoon when nobody was looking. That morning, Ramoda sent her to Madame Bisi's house with a basket of washed clothes. Madame Bisi was one of the richest women in Oduama. Big voice, big pride, big contempt. When Amina arrived, Madame Bisi stood on the veranda, chewing bitter cola and inspecting her like she was dirt. "So you are the one washing my children's uniform," Madame Bisi said. "If I smell dampness, you will pay." "Yes, ma," Amina replied. Madame Bisi's eyes dropped to Amina's chest. That necklace again. Where did you steal it from?" Amina's heart jumped. "I didn't steal it, ma. It belongs to my mother." Madame Bisi snorted. "Your mother that died with nothing? Poor women don't wear gold." She grabbed the pendant and pulled. Pain shot through Amina's neck. Amina cried out, holding the chain with both hands. "Please," she begged. "It's all I have." Madame Bisi tugged again, harder until the chain dug into Amina's skin. "Then give it to someone who deserves it." Amina did the only thing she rarely did. She resisted, not with fists, but with desperation. She clung to the necklace like it was her mother's hand. tears spilling. Please, Ma, don't. Madame Bisi's face tightened with irritation. She shoved Amina backward. Amina stumbled off the veranda and fell, the basket tipping. The neatly folded uniform spilled into red dust, Madame Bisi hissed. See, clumsy goat, gather my clothes now. Amina knelt quickly, brushing dust from the fabric with shaking fingers, apologizing until her throat burned. When she finished, Madame Bisi tossed her a sachet of water. Take. Don't say I'm wicked. Amina held the sachet, unsure whether to cry or laugh. Even mercy in Odawama came with humiliation attached. On her way back from the river, Ramota noticed the raw red line on Amina's neck. What happened here? She snapped, stepping closer. Amina's palm covered the pendant instantly. Ramota's eyes sharpened. Hungry. So you were fighting over that necklace. Remove it and hand it over, now. Amina shook her head, fear tightening her throat. Ramota lunged. Amina twisted away and ran into the backyard, slipping behind the goat shed. She shoved the chain deeper under her blouse, breathing hard, listening to Ramota stomp about, cursing and searching. When the footsteps finally faded, Amina crawled out, dust on her knees, and swore silently that nobody, not Ramota, not Madame Bisi, not anyone would rip her mother's last gift away from her again. She returned home late, and Ramota's anger was waiting. Where have you been? Ramota shouted. You think I'm your mate? Amina tried to explain, but the slap came first, then another. Ramota shoved her into the wall. If they complain about you, I will send you away. Do you hear? I will send you to the city where girls disappear. Amina tasted blood and nodded, eyes lowered. Yes, Ma. That evening, while Ramota ate soup and fufu with her children, Amina sat outside near the cooking shed, chewing boiled cassava she had begged from Mama Kudirat. The cassava was hard, but it kept her standing. The sky above was wide, filled with stars that looked too clean for the dirty world below. She touched her necklace and whispered, Mommy, what is this proof? The answer came as memory, sharp and sudden. She was 7 again, sitting by her mother's side under the same stars. Her mother's voice had been soft, like a secret. Amina, her mother had said, if you ever see a man who looks at this necklace like he has seen death, do not run. Listen, ask questions. Some people carry promises they are ashamed of. Is it my father? Little Amina had asked. Her mother had paused, then shook her head slowly. A man who once loved me. One day he will look for the truth. Amina's chest tightened. So the stranger was not random. He was part of a story her mother never finished. The next day, Amina went back to the river, not because Ramota ordered her, but because her heart needed answers. Mist floated above the water. Amina scrubbed clothes with one eye on the path, watching for the stranger's return. She didn't know what she wanted. Fear, hope, anger, maybe all of them. When footsteps finally came, they were familiar. Amina looked up too fast, breath-catching, but it was only Sei, a village boy known for trouble. He smirked. Mina, I heard a big man came to price you yesterday. Amina's cheeks burned. Leave me alone. Sei crouched close, eyes cruel. If he carries you to the city, remember us here, oh. Don't come back with your big head. Amina stood, gripping her washboard. Go. Sei laughed and walked away, but his words left a shadow. What if the stranger was wealthy? What if he had recognized the necklace and wanted to take it? What if he returned, not with tears, but with power? As the sun rose, Amina's hands shook. She realized something frightening. The necklace that protected her might also attract danger. In a village that could not stand to see her breathe, any change in her destiny would be resented. She wrung out the last cloth and stared into the river's moving surface. Her reflection looked small, tired, uncertain. Yet behind her eyes, something else began to form. Courage. If the stranger returned, she would not bow like before. She would ask. She would demand the truth her mother carried to the grave. And somewhere beyond the trees, a car engine murmured on the village road, slow and expensive, as if someone was coming back, careful not to be seen. Chief Obina Adewale had not planned to return to Oduama. In his mind, the village belonged to a life he had buried under success, contracts, and glass towers. Yet the moment he saw the necklace on the poor girl's chest by the river, everything he had spent years running from rose up and grabbed him by the throat. All night in his hotel room on the outskirts of the town, sleep refused to come. The ceiling fan spun endlessly as memories he had locked away replayed without mercy. Inkem, her laughter, her stubborn pride, the way she wore that necklace like a vow, not jewelry. He remembered the day he gave it to her, promising to return after settling business in the city. He remembered leaving with ambition, burning brighter than love, and he remembered never coming back. By morning, Obinna knew one thing clearly. He could not leave without answers. He dressed simply again, leaving his driver behind. In Oduwama, wealth attracted attention, and attention brought questions he was not ready to answer. He walked toward the river on foot, heart pounding harder with every step. He told himself he was only curious, that coincidence was possible, that many necklaces existed in the world. Yet deep down he feared the truth because it carried the weight of his failure. From a distance he saw her. Amina knelt by the water, sleeves rolled, hands moving rhythmically as she washed clothes. The morning light rested gently on her face, revealing exhaustion and quiet strength. She looked thinner than he remembered Nkem, but her eyes held the same calm resilience. Obinna stopped behind a tree, watching without announcing himself, studying her like a man afraid that one wrong move would shatter reality. She worked without complaint. When other women arrived, some greeted her, others whispered and laughed. Obinna felt anger rise in his chest. This girl, whoever she truly was, carried herself with dignity despite being treated like dust. It unsettled him. When she paused to rub her aching wrists, her fingers brushed the necklace. Obinna's breath caught. The pendant glinted briefly, unmistakable. His legs weakened, and he leaned against the tree for support. There was no doubt now. Fate had not merely crossed his path, it had waited patiently. He stepped forward, then stopped again. What would he say? I loved your mother. I abandoned her. I am sorry? Apologies felt small beside the damage time had done. So he stayed back, watching, listening, gathering courage he had not needed in boardrooms or courtrooms. A boy approached her, mocking, loud. Obinna's fists clenched. He nearly intervened, but Amina stood her ground, eyes firm, voice steady. When the boy left, Obinna felt something close to pride. She was not broken. Life had bent her, but not crushed her. Later, as the sun climbed, Amina finished her work and lifted her basin. She glanced around, and for a brief second, her eyes met his. Obinna froze. He saw a recognition flicker, then caution. She hesitated as if expecting him to speak. Fear rushed through him. He was not ready. He turned away quickly and walked back towards the path, heart racing like a man fleeing his own shadow. That afternoon, Obinna sat in his car, staring through the windshield at the village road. His phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from the city, meetings, deals, deadlines. None of it mattered. For the first time in years, success felt meaningless. What was the value of wealth if it could not correct a single wrong? He asked discreet questions. He learned her name, Amina. He learned she lived with her aunt, that she washed clothes to survive, that her mother had died poor and forgotten. Each detail cut deeper than the last. Income had not been protected. The child she left behind had not been spared hardship. Obinna pressed his forehead against the steering wheel, shame heavy in his chest. That evening he returned to the river again, hoping to find Amina alone. The place was quiet, the water glowing orange under the setting sun. He stood there, rehearsing words that sounded hollow even in his head. When she appeared, carrying an empty basin, his heart jumped. Amina, he called softly. She stopped, turning slowly. Her eyes searched his face, guarded but curious. Sir. He noticed how she held herself, ready to run if necessary. I'm sorry for yesterday, he said. I left abruptly. She nodded. You asked about my necklace. Yes. He took a careful step closer. Your mother, Nkem, she meant a great deal to me. Amina's grip tightened on the basin. People say many things about my mother. Obinna swallowed. They are wrong. Silence stretched between them. The river murmured, patient. Obinna wanted to tell her everything, but fear held him back. Not fear of rejection, but fear of truth. If he spoke fully, he would have to face the consequences of his choices. I won't trouble you, he said finally. But may I speak with you again? Amina studied him. Something in his eyes, regret, sincerity, softened her caution. If you want to talk, she said, you should come openly. I don't like secrets. Her words struck him harder than an accusation. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing by the river, exposed and humbled. As darkness fell, Obina understood something vital. This was not about reclaiming the past. It was about responsibility, about standing before the truth without power or excuses. And for the first time since he left Oduama years ago, Chief Obina Adewale knew that wealth would not save him. Only honesty might. Amina noticed the village had started watching her. It showed in the sudden hush that followed her footsteps, in the way market women leaned closer to whisper, and in how Ramoda's eyes kept sliding to the chain on Amina's neck like hunger itself. Since the day the stranger stared at her necklace by the river, Oduama had smelled change, and change always made people either kinder or more wicked. That afternoon the sun sat low, painting the river bronze. Amina knelt on her usual stone, scrubbing children's uniforms until her wrists ached. The cold water numbed her fingers, but her mind stayed hot with questions. Someone who should have come back. The words clung to her like wet cloth. Her mother had spoken of a promise, yet she never said the man's name. Footsteps approached, slow, steady, not the careless stomp of village boys. Amina kept washing, pretending not to notice. Mana, a deep voice called. She froze, then lifted her head. It was him, tall, quiet, simple clothes, yet something powerful hid in the way he carried himself. His eyes looked older than his face, heavy with regret. You came back, Amina said, and it sounded like blame. He nodded. You said you don't like secrets, so I came plainly. Mina stood, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Why are you here, sir? He glanced toward the path where two women pretended not to listen. Can we talk somewhere private? She walked a short distance to a cluster of reeds, and he followed, keeping space between them. My name is Obina, he said. Amina's jaw tightened. Obina who? He exhaled. Obina Adewale. Amina's stomach tightened. She had heard that name in rumors. Chief this, billionaire that. Stories villagers repeated as if wealth were a spirit. She searched his face and saw the truth. He was not a random traveler. So you're the man people talk about, she said. I'm only a man, Obina replied, and I've made mistakes. Amina's fingers closed around her pendant. You asked about this. What does it mean to you? Obina's eyes locked onto the necklace. I gave it to your mother. Amina went still. You, Opio, gave it to her? Yes, he said. Before money and titles, I met Inkem in the city. She sold roasted corn near a bus stop. She had nothing, yet she carried dignity like royalty. I fell in love with her courage. Amina shook her head. My mother never told me she lived in the city. She didn't want you to carry her pain, Obina said. We planned a future. I promised to return properly. When I got my first real pay, I bought that necklace and placed it on her neck myself. I told her it was proof of my promise. Amina's voice rose. Then where were you when she was dying? Obina flinched. I was chasing the life I thought I wanted. Opportunity came, and I ran after it. I kept saying, soon. Soon became years. Then my world collapsed. My mother died. My business nearly failed. And I became afraid of anything that reminded me of Inkem. I buried the memory instead of facing it. Amina turned away, breathing hard. She waited, she said. She waited until her coughing became blood. She waited until she couldn't stand. And still, she told me not to hate you. Obina stepped closer, stopping before he touched her. She spoke of me? She spoke of a promise, Amina answered bitterly. She said the man was not evil, only lost. She said this necklace would lead me to the truth, and that one day the truth would look at me and remember. Obina's eyes filled. I remembered the moment I saw it. Before Amina could respond, Ramoda's voice sliced through the reeds. Amina! Ramoda marched toward them. When she noticed Obina, she paused, then forced a smile. Good afternoon, sir. I didn't know you were speaking with my niece. Amina's stomach sank. Ramota's politeness always meant trouble. Obina greeted her with a nod. Ramota's gaze dropped instantly to the necklace. Sir, this girl is stubborn. She wears that thing as if it's gold. I've told her to remove it. She's young. She doesn't know value. Amina's hands clenched. Obina's face hardened. That necklace is hers. No one will remove it from her. Ramota blinked. Sir, village matters are different. Since her mother died, I've been feeding her, training her. Everything she owns. Feeding me, right? Amina snapped. You beat me. You starve me. You send me to wash clothes from dawn to night and call it training. The sound carried. Two women on the path turned fully. A man returning from the farm slowed down. Mama Kudarat, coming from the market, stopped and stared. Ramota's face twisted. Ungrateful child. Obina stepped between them. Do not touch her. A small crowd formed, pulled by shock and curiosity. Mama Kudarat pushed forward. Let the girl speak. We have watched her suffer. Ramota tried to laugh. Old woman, face your pepper. Mama Kudarat's eyes flashed. Wickedness is everybody's business. Obina turned to Amina. Tell them what your mother told you. Amina swallowed. My mother's name was Inkem. She said this necklace was given to her by a man who promised to return and marry her. She died still waiting. She told me never to remove it, even if hunger tempted me. Murmurs rose. Ramota shouted, Lies! Inkem was nothing. Obina faced the crowd. Inkem was not nothing. She was my love, and I failed her. Silence dropped. Obina continued, Tomorrow morning, I will return with elders. We will speak openly. Anyone who has treated this girl like a curse will hear the truth, and anyone who has abused her will be held responsible. He looked at Ramota. Bring her home safely tonight. If she arrives with fresh bruises, police will knock on your door. Ramota nodded too quickly. Yes, sir. Obina turned to Amina. I can't undo years in one day, but I can stand where I should have stood long ago. Amina clutched the necklace. It felt warmer against her skin, as if her mother's hand was resting there. Around her, villagers stared, some ashamed, some shocked, some suddenly respectful. As Obina walked away, the crowd parted for him. Amina remained by the riverbank, heart pounding with fear and strange hope. For the first time, she was not just the poor girl washing clothes. She was a question the village could no longer ignore. Ramota walked Amina home in silence, her pride bruised and her steps angry. Inside the compound, she tried to regain power with small threats, washing plates too loudly, slamming doors, muttering that outsiders would leave and Amina would still be under her roof. But Amina said nothing. She sat on her mat, held the pendant in her palm, and listened to the night. For once, fear did not feel like a chain. It felt like a doorway. If elders came tomorrow, the village would hear everything, and Ramota would finally learn that silence is not the same thing as weakness today. And inside her, one thought repeated, tomorrow, the truth will have a name. Morning broke over Oduama with a strange and restless silence, the kind that pressed heavily on the chest and made breathing feel deliberate. Even the birds seemed cautious, chirping softly as though they sensed the weight of what was coming. Long before the sun rose fully, villagers were awake. Doors creaked open earlier than usual. Women abandoned their cooking fires halfway, pots left steaming. Men who should have gone to the farms lingered around their compounds, pretending to fix tools while listening for news. Something important was about to happen, and the entire village felt it deep in their bones. Amina had not slept. She sat on her raffia mat through the night, knees drawn tightly to her chest, fingers wrapped firmly around the necklace, as if it might vanish if she loosened her grip. Every memory of suffering returned in waves, the hunger that burned her stomach, the beatings that left her bruised, the insults that chipped away at her dignity, the river water numbing her cracked hands. Today felt like the edge of a cliff. She did not know whether she would fall into deeper pain or finally learn how to fly. When dawn came, Ramota did not shout. That alone unsettled Amina more than any slap ever could. Instead, her aunt stood at the doorway, arms folded, eyes uncertain and cautious. Bathe, Ramota said stiffly. Change your wrapper. The elders have called everyone to the square. Her voice lacked its usual cruelty, and that silence spoke louder than anger. Amina obeyed silently. She washed her face slowly, braided her hair neatly with shaking fingers, and tied the cleanest wrapper she owned around her waist. She touched the necklace last, whispering her mother's name under her breath like a prayer. Whatever happened today, she knew her mother would see it, and that thought steadied her heart. The village square was already crowded when they arrived. Elders sat beneath the old Iroko tree, their faces grave and unreadable. Women clustered together, murmuring nervously, eyes darting from face to face. Children climbed low branches to see better, excitement mixing with confusion. Then the sound came, deep, smooth engines rolling slowly into the square. Dust rose into the air as 3 black vehicles stopped, their polished bodies foreign against the red earth of Oduama. Chief Obina Adewale stepped out. A gasp rippled through the crowd like sudden wind across dry leaves. This time there was no pretending. He wore a finely tailored native outfit, simple yet unmistakably expensive. His posture was dignified, his shoulders straight, but his face held no pride, only resolve, regret, and purpose. Behind him followed important-looking men, a lawyer, aides, and elders from a neighboring town. Obina's eyes searched the crowd until they found Amina. When they met, something unspoken passed between them, recognition, guilt, and promise. He nodded once, slow and deliberate, as if grounding himself. The village head rose carefully to his feet. Chief Obina Adewale, you are welcome. Obina bowed deeply, surprising many. Thank you. I am here to speak the truth and to take responsibility. The murmurs died instantly, swallowed by anticipation. Many years ago, Obina began, turning slowly so all could hear him clearly, I loved a woman from this village. Her name was Nkem. Soft whispers spread through the crowd. Some nodded slowly, memory stirring in their eyes. She was poor but rich in dignity, he continued. I promised her marriage. I promised to return for her. I failed. Amina's chest tightened painfully, as if invisible hands squeezed her heart. I chased success and allowed fear to silence me, Obina said, voice firm but strained. By the time I found the courage to return, she was gone. She died waiting. A woman sobbed aloud, covering her mouth. But Nkem did not leave the world empty, Obina continued. She left behind a daughter. Shock exploded across the square. Heads turned wildly until they settled on Amina, whose knees suddenly felt weak beneath her. Obina stepped forward until he stood directly before her. He lifted his hand gently toward her chest. That necklace is the proof of my promise. I gave it to her myself. Ramota staggered backward, nearly falling, disbelief written across her face. Then Obina did something no one expected. He dropped to his knees. A scream tore through the village. Women clutched their wrappers in shock. Men froze, mouths open, unable to process what they were seeing. Dust stained Obina's knees as he knelt fully before Amina, his head bowed low in humility. I cannot kneel before Nkem's grave, he said, voice breaking openly now. So I kneel before her living legacy. Tears streamed freely down Amina's face, hot and unstoppable. I am sorry, Obina continued. Sorry you grew up hungry. Sorry you were beaten and mocked. Sorry the village treated you as nothing. My absence created your suffering, and I will not run from that truth. Ramota collapsed onto her knees behind Amina, shaking violently, her pride finally shattered. Obina raised his head slowly. I kneel not out of pity, but out of responsibility and out of love. He reached into his pocket and brought out a small velvet box. Slowly, deliberately, he opened it. Inside lay a simple but elegant ring. Modest yet powerful in meaning. Mana, he said softly, if you accept, I want to marry you. Not as charity, not as compensation, but because I choose you. If you refuse, I will still protect you for the rest of my life. The square held its breath. Amina's legs trembled as memories flooded her mind. She remembered the river, the cold water biting her skin, her mother's voice telling her never to remove the necklace. She looked at Obina, not the billionaire, not the powerful man, but the broken soul kneeling before her. Stand up, she whispered. Obina rose slowly, eyes never leaving hers. I don't know your world, Amina said steadily, strength rising in her voice. I only know suffering. If I say yes, it will not be because of money. Obina nodded solemnly. You must promise me, she continued, never to silence my voice, never to use power against me, and never to forget where you found me. Obina placed his hand on his chest. On my life, I promise. Amina inhaled deeply, the entire village watching her breathe. Yes, she said, I will marry you. The village exploded in sound and emotion. Women screamed and ululated in disbelief. Men clapped and shouted praises. Mama Kudarat wept openly, hands lifted to the sky. Obina slipped the ring onto Amina's trembling finger and pulled her into his arms as the crowd roared with joy and shock. That day, the poor girl by the river became a bride, and the billionaire learned that redemption is the greatest wealth a man can kneel for. The days that followed felt unreal to Amina, as though she had stepped outside her body and was watching another girl live her life. Oduama no longer looked at her with contempt or impatience. People greeted her carefully now, measuring their words, afraid of saying the wrong thing. Some smiled too widely and forced kindness, others bowed their heads in shame. The same river still flowed quietly at the edge of the village, but Amina knew she would never kneel there again to wash other people's clothes for survival or humiliation. Chief Obina kept his word with the precision of a man determined never to fail again. Before the sun set on the day of his proposal, elders were summoned, statements were taken, and truths long buried were spoken aloud. Ramota sat before the council trembling, her arrogance stripped away like old paint. Neighbors testified about the beatings, the hunger, and the insults. Mama Kudarat spoke last, her voice calm but heavy with years of watching injustice. By nightfall, Ramota was ordered to vacate the compound she ruled with cruelty. She begged openly, but Amina remained silent. Justice, she learned, did not always require revenge, only truth. That same evening, Amina left Oduama for the first time in her life. As the car moved away from the village, she pressed her forehead against the window, watching the red earth fade into distance. She did not feel pride or bitterness. She felt release, like chains dropping quietly. The road ahead was unfamiliar, but for once it did not frighten her. Obina sat beside her in silence, giving her space, allowing her to breathe into her new reality without pressure or expectation. The city overwhelmed her at first. Tall buildings pierced the sky, lights refused to sleep, and traffic hummed endlessly like a restless ocean. Obina's mansion was vast, yet he instructed the staff to treat Amina gently, not as a possession, but as a woman adjusting to shock. She was given her own room, simple and warm. That night, Amina slept deeply for the first time in years, her dreams free of hunger, fear, and shouting. Days turned into weeks, and weeks softened into peace. Obina insisted on patience, refusing to rush her healing. He encouraged Amina to learn, to ask questions, to discover herself beyond survival. She learned to read properly, to speak confidently, and to sit at tables without fear of being chased away. Yet she never removed the necklace. It remained against her skin, a reminder of where she came from and why her life mattered. Preparations for the wedding began quietly, then grew into careful celebration. Obina refused extravagance that would overshadow meaning. Let it honor her journey, he insisted. Designers came and went, fabrics were chosen slowly, and every detail respected Amina's comfort. When she first wore her wedding dress, she cried not because of its beauty, but because she never imagined she deserved something so gentle, so clean, and so intentionally made for her alone. The wedding day arrived bathed in soft sunlight. The venue overlooked a wide river, its surface calm and shining like memory. Guests filled the space, powerful people standing alongside villagers who once ignored her. As Amina walked forward, her steps were steady, her heart full. When she reached the altar, Obina waited with open eyes and humility. He did not see a poor girl. He saw strength, forgiveness, and love earned through truth. As vows were exchanged, Amina's voice did not shake. I come to you without fear, she said. I bring my past with me, not as shame, but as proof that love can find broken places. Obina answered with tears in his eyes. I choose you every day, he replied, not as redemption, but as destiny. When the ring slid onto her finger, applause thundered through the hall. Music followed, laughter and dancing. Yet Amina's joy remained quiet and rooted. She was not intoxicated by wealth or attention. She was grounded by dignity. For the first time, she belonged to herself. Later that evening, she stood alone briefly by the river beside the venue. Obina joined her, slipping his arm around her shoulders. "Do you miss it?" he asked softly. She smiled gently. "No, but I respect it." She touched her necklace. "It brought me here." Obina nodded, "And it reminded me who I was supposed to be." They returned to the celebration hand in hand. News of the wedding spread quickly across towns and villages. In Oduama, people gathered around radios and phones, watching images of the girl they once mocked now standing radiant beside a powerful man. Some cried openly, some bowed their heads in regret. The riverbank remained silent, holding secrets, but the village would never forget what it had witnessed. Weeks later, Amina returned once more to Oduama, not in anger but in grace. She established a foundation to support girls forced into labor and denied education. Mama Kudarat became its first guardian. When Amina visited the river, she stood tall, whispered her mother's name, and left flowers on the bank. She did not look back with pain. She looked forward with purpose. The poor girl by the river had become a woman of choice, voice, and love, and the necklace had finally fulfilled its promise. Moral of the story: never judge a life by poverty or appearance. Kindness, patience, and dignity can survive even the harshest suffering, and truth always finds its time. When people take responsibility for their past and honor humanity above pride, broken destinies can be healed and greatness can rise from the dust. Thank you for staying till the end of this powerful story. Amina's journey reminds us that destiny can rise from suffering and truth can rewrite the past. If this story touched you, please like, share, and comment your thoughts. Subscribe for more emotional African stories and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next right now today.